Good evening, Yorktown, and welcome to our first annual Day of Service ceremony honoring the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. My name's Matt Slater. I'm proud to be the town supervisor for the town of Yorktown, and I am playing the role of MC tonight, which is a great honor in itself. We're going to begin. Before I begin, I'd like to take a moment to thank and welcome the members of the Yorktown Interfaith Council, and you'll see them spread out across the screen here. The Yorktown Interfaith Council plays, and see some of them are waving, they play such a pivotal role within our community. And personally, it's just such a joy to partner with leaders of all different faiths to honor Dr. King and raise up his work that focused on equality, focused on justice, and focused on love. And with that, we're going to begin tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you can, please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag,
of the United States of America,
to the republic for which
it stands, one nation under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. I'd now like to invite Rabbi Robbie Weiner of Temple Betham to lead us in an opening prayer. Rabbi?
Thank you. O source of light and life for all, we, your children, in the town of Yorktown, gather here this evening to feel your presence. We yearn to feel your closeness for a particular purpose. It is truly our hope that feeling your presence will unite us and empower us to better our town, our state, and our country. We come into this presence to remember and honor one of your strongest advocates, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. You inspired him to write, to speak, and to work, empowering others to knock down the walls of racial injustice that plagued our country. Let our gathering to honor Dr. King not be in vain. Let the lessons we learned this evening inspire us to open our eyes to the injustices that still exist for all peoples of color. And may this gathering bless us with the ability to break down those walls of racial injustice, brick by brick, stone by stone, pebble by pebble. May this gathering be a blessing to all. And let us all say together, Amen.
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 Thank you, Rabbi, for those incredible words. And I really want to thank Rabbi Weiner for his partnership and his leadership. Truly, this ceremony would not have been possible without Rabbi Robbie and our collective acknowledgement of this important day. And it was something that he and I had conversed about over the last few weeks and acknowledged that we wanted to do something to acknowledge the life and the accomplishments of Dr. King and like I said, raise up his work so that we can continue to emulate it. I'd like to welcome several of our elected officials who are joining us tonight. We have Councilwoman Alice Roker. We have with us our town clerk, of course, Diana Quast, who pivotal once again in getting this off the ground, and I want to thank Diana for that. We have our highway superintendent, Dave Paganelli, and we also, I see, have one of our town council members, Ed Lachterman, with us. Both our county legislators, Colin Smith and Vidat Gashi, send their regrets for not being able to join us tonight, but do thank everyone for participating. I just have a few brief remarks before we move on to our guest speaker. And again, as I said, Rabbi Robbie and I had a number of conversations about this event. While we wish we could be together, one of the challenges of today, the COVID-19 pandemic, is preventing us from doing so. But there's hope. There's hope that next year we will be able to gather together as part of Yorktown's Day of Service to honor the life of Dr. King. And moving forward, I hope that we may see a Martin Luther King committee as part of the continued work of the Yorktown Interfaith Council in the town of Yorktown that will work to make this an annual event with greater emphasis on and opportunities for community service. This is one of the things that Dr. King preached so much about. The idea and importance of service was a cornerstone to Dr. King's teachings. One of my favorite quotes from him, he said, life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? In this new world of COVID, and hopefully soon to be the post-COVID era, this should be the question we continually ask ourselves. What are we doing for others during these challenging times? While our perspectives are all different, from where I sit, I have seen amazing acts of service, of kindness, of community performed by many of our neighbors during this pandemic. I've called it the Yorktown way. I haven't been shy about that. And it really translates to being a good neighbor. At the beginning of this ordeal, I would receive calls constantly from complete strangers all over town asking one question: how can I help? This amazing level of selflessness, especially during a global pandemic, I believe would have made Dr. King very proud. Let's also recognize our frontline heroes, our medical professionals, first responders, police, grocery store workers, our mail carriers, and of course our teachers, and all those who redefined what the word essential really means to our society. During this most difficult year, we as a community stood with each other, offering help in a multitude of ways. But the next challenge will be when we return to that normalcy that we all so desperately yearn for. Yes, it's reassuring to know that when society gets knocked down, humanity can most definitely pick us up. But we must remember Dr. King's challenge to serve others, because the change we seek only comes about when we serve others first, when we find common ground, when we use power ethically, and insist on fairness and insist on equality. I'd like to take a moment to offer my fellow elected officials an opportunity to speak as well. I don't know if any wish to tonight, and I don't mean to put anyone on the spot. If not, we can continue on with our program. Okay. I am thrilled to welcome our guest speaker. Our keynote speaker tonight is Mr. Frank Williams. And I see Frank on my screen. He's in the top corner there. Frank Williams has had a long and distinguished career in human service. He's currently the director of the Youth Bureau of the City of White Plains and has been with this agency for 29 years. Prior to his current position, Frank was the director of employment service for the Grand Street Settlement in New York City. In addition to providing leadership at the Youth Bureau, Mr. Williams sits on the board of directors of Good Counsel Academy, is a member of the Black Scholars Committee, and a member of the Beta Alpha chapter of the Omega Psi Fraternity, Inc. He's been recognized numerous times for his amazing community work. And not to steal his thunder at all, but Mr. Williams holds a degree in sociology and anthropology from Tougaloo College in Tougaloo, Mississippi. Did I get that right?
You got it, yeah.
All right, I've been practicing. And he has a master's degree in social work from Fordham University. I can say that one pretty good. I got Fordham down. Lastly, and like I said, not to take away from his thunder, but Mr. Williams, and I didn't know this until he and I spoke about tonight's event. Mr. Williams was raised in Mississippi, where his mother worked directly with Dr. King. And we are thrilled to welcome him virtually to the town of Yorktown and to hear his words tonight. So Frank, thank you again so much for gracing us with your presence and providing some great words for us tonight. We're looking forward to hearing them.
Thank you, Matt. And thank all of you for the opportunity to come and speak with you and to share my own reflections of Dr. King and talk a little bit about the work that we're doing. And in fact, Matt, this is my 36th year here at the White Plains Youth Bureau.
Wow.
So,
excellent.
I've been here for a minute, so and we've been doing good work. But I want to start, we're going to talk about Dr. King, but I want to start telling you a true story. Several years ago, I was working with a group of young African-American boys here in White Plains in a public housing building. And these young people were coming to our meetings, and we engaged them because really our young men needed help and guidance and direction. And one evening I asked these young boys, they were 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and I said, well, do you know anybody on drugs? And they said, if you do, raise your hand. All of the hands went up. So do you know anyone locked up in prison walls? And all of the hands went up. And I asked them, well, do you have a father at home? The majority of these young boys said that they did not have a father at home. And what they said to me, and I said, well, why are you here? They said, Mr. Williams, we don't have anyone. Can you help us? And that kind of pulled my heartstring. And when I looked at the issues of young Black and brown boys and girls in our community, we recognize and realize that our young people have some battles to fight. The issue of poverty, the issue of hopelessness, and the issue of people who can help guide and direct their path. And really, that's my work. That's our work, all of our work. Our work is to create a better world. So yes, Matt, I'm from Canton, Mississippi. And Canton is really just north of Jackson, right outside of the city of Jackson. I had issues with my mom when I was young. I'll tell you the story. My mom was always gone. My mom worked with Dr. King, and we had a speaker a week ago. Her name is Dr. Flundy Brown Wright, and she also worked with Dr. King. And Flundy, Dr. Wright, was the first elected woman elected to government in the state of Mississippi since Reconstruction. My mom was the first woman elected to office in my hometown. And so they worked with Dr. King, and I remember those days of racism and segregation, and the issue of, the tracks would separate the white community from the Black community. And in our town, we had a swimming pool. But when I was young, the swimming pool shut down because the white community did not want their children swimming with Black boys and girls. And so you've heard that I am the director of the White Plains Youth Bureau. I got here in 1974. I came up here right out of college. I went to Tougaloo College, and I've been here ever since now, since 1974. So the White Plains Youth Bureau is probably it really is a dynamic agency. We serve 2,000 kids a day. We have more than 60 programs. We have an aviation academy. We have a college academy. You have mentoring and leadership. We have a lot of programs for White Plains young people. And we all know that the youth are our future. Mm-hmm. And we work really hard to bring young people together here in White Plains to help them to be the best that they can be and to help them to transition into the future. About 5 years ago, we started a program called Keepers of the Dream. Keepers of the Dream. And the focus of that program was to have young people to come together from Scarsdale and New Rochelle and Mount Vernon and Irvington and Port Chester to talk about how are we going to achieve Dr. King's dream. And we were working with these young people because we wanted to have young people to work together while they were young, because we know that as they get out into the world, if they have not had those kind of contacts and relationships with each other, it may be a little bit more difficulty. So we're trying to break down the walls of separation here in White Plains with the Keepers of the Dream program. And that's how we brought Dr. Flundy Wright Brown to White Plains last week. We'll talk about the issues that we have in common, the issues that speaks to the needs of young people in terms of race relations and justice. I mentioned that my mom worked with Dr. King. My uncle worked with Medgar Evers. So I grew up at a time when there was significant racial animosity and racism. I grew up at a time when the issues of race was center and front in our community and in our nation. Now I'm 68 years young. And I have a lot of memories of those particular times in terms of the Ku Klux Klan and the hatred and malice and the issues that confronted our nation. I remember the tragedy of Goodman, Weiner, and Cheney. I remember the plight of those individuals, and I remember the Freedom Riders when they came down to Mississippi. And so my mom and my dad also ran for office back then, but I grew up saying I never wanted to be like my mom or my dad because they were never at home. And of course, we lived at these times and we were really concerned about our health and safety. But don't you know that I have grown up to be just like my mother? Right? And you know, they say that the apple don't fall far from the tree. And so what the community poured into me is now what I'm pouring into our young people here in this community. I remember on April 4th, 1968. And I remember the evening, the day that Dr. King was shot. I was 14 years of age. And it was really something about that day. The night before, Dr. King, you remember the story, Dr. King gave a message at the Mason Temple Church of God in Christ to over 2,000 people. But he had been sick and there was tornado warnings and all of that. But during that whole period, I remember the environment. It was kind of dark and gloomy and there was ominous clouds and all of that. And that stayed in my psyche because of the weather. And I remember the day that he was shot and killed. And it pulled our heartstrings. And for me and others, we recognize that if we don't take the mantle, the torch, and move forward and run with it, our nation would be in peril. As you know, Dr. King talked about the three evils. He talked about poverty, he talked about war, and he talked about racism. That really brings us back to where we are today, right? We just last week, we saw what happened in Washington, D.C. Now, we're supposed to be the home of the brave, right? And the land of the free. But I tell you all that we have a lot of work to do. All of us have work to do, right? How do we make this democratic nation to be the best that it can be? How do we make dreams come true? How do we make it right for every person, be they black, white, rich, or poor, to live in a world that is free of hate and free of malice? And you know, Dr. King said it well. Only love can overcome hate, right? And hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Dr. King's life was one of selfishness, sacrifice, and service. And you had said earlier today is a day of service. It is a day on and not a day off. And so we're living now in these particular times where there is anger and hate and animosity. But we should be lifting each other up as opposed to tearing each other down. Dr. King said that we will either live together as brothers or will perish as fools. And then he talked about from community to chaos, from community to chaos. He talked about that in Detroit, Michigan one day. And he talked about the opportunity of our nation to build housing, affordable housing, to improve education, to improve healthcare. Now we've gone through this whole year, this whole pandemic with the COVID-19, and we know that over 300,000 people have died as a result. And if Dr. King was here today, he would remind us of the issues that we are facing, and that is the issues of hate and the issues of racism and the issues of war and the issues of separation and division in our nation. And if we're going to achieve the Dr. King's dream, we got to put down our anger. We got to put down our hate and lift each other up. Now, also, in recent months and many, in fact, over the years, we have all been impacted because of social injustice and violence. I am mindful of what happened this summer with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and then going back to Tamir Rice and Michael Brown and Eric Garner. Dr. King talked about the fact that in our nation, there is a lot of good, and a lot of good happened with him when he was alive. He wasn't just a person who was concerned about just the Black community. He was concerned about humanity. He was concerned about women. He was concerned about children. And a lot of people, I remember in 1960, I think it was 1962, 63, when the Freedom Riders came to my hometown. And the Freedom Riders were mostly white young boys and white young girls from colleges in Ohio and Pennsylvania and Kentucky. And I was struck because back then, Black really didn't have a lot of healthy relationship with whites because we lived in a time of racial separation. But that taught me that that we as a people could live together and work together and lift each other up. The turning point for me, one of the turning points for me was when Dr. King came to my hometown in 1966. He came with Stokely Carmichael and James Farmer. And in my hometown, it was 70% Black. Think about it, 70% Black, but only 100 Black were registered to vote, right? 100 of the 70%, only 100 Black. Of course, back in those days, there was the issue of poll tax, and then you could be shot, killed, or beaten if you registered to vote. But thank God that Dr. King pushed the needle with the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. So now we do have voting, but we still have some ways to go. We have a little voting suppression going on still in our country. And I think the issue with our nation is that our current president has issue with the voting outcome. But we are pressing on and we're not looking back. We're going to continue to move the needle. There is a parable that I like. And the parable comes out of the Bible. And the parable says that there was a certain man who was traveling to a far country. And he gave out 5 talents to one man. And I know that you've heard this story before. And to another man, he gave out 2 talents. And then to another man, he gave out 1 talent. And when he came back, the first man said that I have been fortunate. I have yielded 5 talents. And the second man said that he had yielded 2 talents. And then the third man said he put his talents in the dirt. He dug a hole and put his talent in. And the Lord said to these men, to the first 2 men, because you have been faithful over 2 things, come on up and I'm going to make you masters over a few things. But the third man, because he didn't do anything with his talents, and he didn't do anything because he was afraid. And I say that we live in a world where people are afraid to speak up, to speak out, and to stand up for social justice. But I don't know about you. I know that what I want is that when I stand and my life is over, I want somebody to say that I was faithful over a few things. And I know that you want to be faithful over a few things in your own life. I know that you want to be the best that you can be. We have a mentoring program here in the Youth Bureau. We have mentors and coaches giving back to people. And I know that we, as Dr. King would say, if you're going.
Oh, hold on, Frank, 1 second. You went mute on us for a second there. Can you unmute? There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know what happened there.
So I talk about the American dream, which is what Dr. King said, is that are we ever going to get to the promised land? Will we ever get to the look over and see Canaan land? And we can do that. We can do that because Dr. King talks about love. And I know that I love my neighbors. When I was growing up and when I first arrived here to White Plains, New York, I realized that there were people who were compassionate. Remember, I came from Mississippi. So my experience growing up in Mississippi was far different than it was when I came to White Plains, New York. So I know that in this country, in Yorktown and White Plains and Yonkers and Mount Vernon, there are a lot of people who are getting it right. They're pouring it back into our community. As Dr. King, even in the midst of his life, remember, a lot of his friends turned against him. when he spoke out about the Vietnam War, a lot of people turned and went the other way. When he talked about economic justice, a lot of people turned and walked away. But we have to stand on our principles, on our ethics. If we're going to change our nation, we have to address the issue of economic disparities that is alive in our community. We have to put down our weapons of militarism. It really is, it calls us to speak up and speak out and to express our love and making sure that we're giving our best to our children and to our community. I have a little grandson, and he's 4 years of age, and even right now, he has no sense of hate or malice of color, because what we're teaching him is that he's a human being just like the other children in his pre-kindergarten class. So we need to take out these labels that stigmatize our children, whether you're black or white, or rich or poor. We're just all humankind, and we're all in this together. And when we work together, when we live together, we can be together. There's an African proverb which says, working together, the ants ate the elephant. And so we're all ants trying to eat this elephant of poverty, of hate, of malice, or poor education. And that's how I see all of us. It is that we have work to do. And today is a day on and not a day off. And I just believe that there's power when we work together, when we build bridges as opposed to tearing down bridges. So I hope that my words this evening has been inspirational to you. I know that growing up in Mississippi, and I couldn't go to the local library when I was growing up. I couldn't go to the movie theater, or I had to drink water at a color fountain. Those have been my experiences, but I have had to not live in the past. I've had to live in the future because, one, the past is the past. Yes. And we can learn from our past, and we can make our country, we can make our nation, we can make Yorktown better, we can work together, we can be friends and family, because we are. The story in the Bible when Cain killed Abel, and the story of, well, who is my brother's keeper, right? Well, we all are our brother's keeper. Who is our neighbor? Our neighbors is the world. And so we go down from this session tonight realizing that we have work to do, and we are all our brothers and sisters' keeper. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. Thank you for what you're doing in Yorktown on this first year service day. My hope is that this will continue, and you'll build bridges, and you'll build trusting relationships with every neighbor in the town of Yorktown. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Frank. Absolutely wonderful words. Absolutely wonderful words, motivating words. God bless you. Let's be bridge builders. That's exactly what we should be taking away from Dr. King's words, from your words today, and let's go build some bridges. That's exactly what we should be doing here to make this a great community, not just here in Yorktown, but a great community on a macro level as well. And Frank, I cannot thank you enough for spending your evening with us, for inspiring us, and for teaching us. And that's something I think is so important about having these types of forums, is because we are able to teach others. And that's something that I think is so crucial. And to your point, I think I said this at a town board meeting a few weeks ago, racism and hate, you're not born with those things. They're taught to you. They're taught to you. And we need to combat that with proper education. And again, this is a step in that direction. And that's one of the goals of this evening, is to educate those who are participating and listening to our words tonight. So again, Frank, I can't thank you enough. And I do want to add one other thing. Keepers of the dream. If we can participate in some way, I know this town and this community would love to be a part of that conversation. So you let me know how we can participate, and you can count on us on being there, because I think what you're doing in that program is just absolutely tremendous, and I would be honored to be a part of it.
I will send you an announcement, Matt, in our next meeting.
Wonderful. That is wonderful. Well, thank you. And Councilwoman Roker, do you want to have a few words?
Yeah, I do. I wanted to tell Mr. Williams how inspirational he was tonight for me. live in a community which is largely white, and I can tell you that last summer, the young people did 2 marches in Yorktown, formed at drawing attention to the people, George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and the others who were killed by white police officers. But they went deeper than that. They spoke about the pain that Black people who live in Yorktown have felt, the difference that they felt. And it's fascinating because as I walk with them and as I listen to them, I can tell you those were 2 of the best times I had living in this community, because I was standing there, walking with kids who were really free to say what was on their mind. And hold on one second. And it was just a blessing for me to be amongst them. And what I explained to them was, for me, there are a lot of people who are angry. And I tend to leave that because I believe that if you focus on anger, you'll always be angry. For me, what I prefer to focus on, maybe something little happened and you had a victory, focus on that. Don't focus on whether or not the bad stuff. And I remember, Doc, as a kid, I remember watching television, watching the times that Dr. King and others had walked and were met with dogs or met with fire hoses. And that was very, very frightening for me. You know, I remember when I left the Brooklyn neighborhood that I lived in to go to another neighborhood because they said we had to go to integrate another junior high school. And because everyone lived in the community that I lived in, we didn't understand. And I remember going there with 4 friends, and we were totally nervous that day. And it worked out just wonderfully. The kids there, they were just like us. They came to learn and to make friends. And, you know, I am so hopeful for this nation. You know, the events of last week hopefully will draw attention to the kind of anger there is in this country. And at some point there will be a breakthrough, because when you live with that much anger, what we saw happen will happen.
Well, I think Dr. King was in addition to being a man of faith, mm-hmm. he was a man of hope too. Yes. And even when he had to sometimes realize that the soldiers who once joined him were abandoning him, he realized that there was a higher power and that he had a calling, and that's the calling of service, and that's the calling that we all have. You know, the calling of helping to make a difference, to live a light with our light, letting our light shine, and to look in our neighborhoods or work with our schools or work with our business community to make sure that people have food to eat, or people have jobs, or young girls can grow up in a community and not be harassed. I mean, those are the things, those are the tenets of our living, is to live a world where freedom is actualized and to put into work. And that's our calling for all of us. We have work to do. When this meeting is done today, tomorrow begins a new day. Mm-hmm. And what are we going to do, right? It means that we get to work. And if we could just engage one person who's different, who doesn't look like us, who, you know, we go into a store or to a business and we smile and we say, how are you? How you doing? We speak to our neighbor. We begin to demonstrate our love to our neighbor, and we begin to make a difference in our community. Now, Dr. King died some years ago, but his life and his legacy still shines bright in our community. And all of us have the mantle to run this race, realizing that we're alive and well to do the work that he did when he was alive.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilwoman Roker. And thank you again, Mr. Williams. I know I see we have Councilman Patel joining us, which is, it's great to see Councilman Patel as well. Now we're going to transition, if we can. We have a special tribute from Cantor Jamie Tortorello Allen from Temple Betham, who's going to sing a song titled Beautiful City. Jamie, take it away.
Out of the ruins and rubble, out of the smoke, out of our night of struggle, can we see a ray of hope? One pale thin ray, reaching for the day. We can build a beautiful city. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We can build a beautiful city, not a city of angels, but we can build a city of man. We may not reach the ending, but we can start. Slowly but surely mending, brick by brick, heart by heart. Now, maybe now, we start learning how we can build a beautiful city. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We can build a beautiful city, not a city of angels, but we can build a city of men. When your trust is all but shattered, when your faith is all but killed, you can give up bitter and battered, or you can slowly start to build a beautiful city. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We can build a beautiful city, not a city of angels, but finally a city of men.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
It's beautiful.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Again, Jamie Tortorello Allen, the cantor from Temple Betham with A Beautiful City. Thank you. And since we can't gather today, I thought it was important for us to hear from two individuals who are combating one of the three evils that Dr. King spoke of, and that's poverty. Last year, the Yorktown Town Board established our Food Security Task Force to help highlight and examine the issue of hunger within our community. Fact of the matter is, food insecurity is a real issue across our region, across our county, and even here in the town of Yorktown. We saw this firsthand during the height of the pandemic's first wave in the spring when our food pantries, the demand in our food pantries, we saw like never before. So as part of our virtual day of service, I'm thrilled to introduce Catherine Frace of First Presbyterian Church, who oversees the First Presbyterian Church's food pantry, and Cindy Smith, and Cindy's, oh, there's Cindy, and Cindy Smith, who oversees the food pantry of St. Mary's. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Would you like to share some words with us about your work within our community?
Sure. Thank you, Supervisor. Hi, Catherine. Catherine do most of the speaking. I'll just say the supervisor's point in the beginning of this pandemic, we went from serving roughly 90 families a week to approximately 500 families a week. And it was overwhelming, to say the least. Our numbers have come back down, but we're over double of what we used to be before the pandemic started. And we don't see that that's going to change anytime soon. There's just, the need is so great. And most of our people come from Yorktown and Cortland. They're not coming from outside the area. So our neighbors are definitely in need. Catherine, I'm going to let you speak because you've got more statistics than I do.
Well, and thanks, Cindy. And I don't know that statistics are the point, but I do think it's important for us all. And part of the goal of the task force is to understand hunger in Yorktown by talking to one another and kind of bringing together all the agencies that try to address this problem. But it's also to try to communicate to our community that, yes, we are a very blessed community, but there are a lot of hungry people. Mm-hmm. And hunger is often invisible. You don't realize that the kids that are in school with your kids, some of them wouldn't have breakfast or lunch if they weren't at school. Right. And so that awareness, I think, is really important to the community. So as Cindy said, our numbers also about tripled in the late spring, and we're settling down to about double. And we know that we're in this for the long haul. If we look back at the recession, which we've all put away in our far distant history, if you look at that, hunger is a trailing indicator because people lose their jobs and initially they're on unemployment and then stuff starts getting tough. And then even if they get their job back, they have many bills yet to pay. And the food is sometimes the last priority because you have to pay for your car and you have to pay for your apartment. And so we saw in the big recession that our numbers stayed high a full 2 years after the government would have said the recession was behind us. So we're in this for the long haul, this uptick in need, even without further waves of the virus. We're in it for a long haul. There are a lot of people in the town of Yorktown who desperately want to be helping this problem. And in the old days, which meant life before COVID, we would have said, great, we could use more volunteers, come and help us on a Saturday morning. We can't do that now. It's not safe to bring in additional volunteers. It's not safe to have more people in our facilities. I think Cindy would say the same.
Absolutely.
But that doesn't mean that people should say, oh, darn, I can't help. So there are lots of ways that people can help. Certainly donations, financial, are always welcome. But if people want to do something tangible, I know it's true for St. Mary's, it's true for First Pres, we would welcome donations of not expired, shelf-stable food, particularly soups or tuna or breakfast cereal. And there are bins to enable people to do that donation, or they can call the church offices to understand what those rules might be. So we would really welcome that. And I will say for First Pres that it was donations of breakfast cereal, over 1,500 boxes within the year 2020 that enabled us to then offer cereal to our clients. We would have not been able to offer it without those donations. So it's a way people can do something tangible. And I really want to thank the supervisor for putting the task force together, and you'll be hearing more from us.
Yes, thank you, Supervisor. And I will say the same thing. We get so many calls about people wanting to volunteer, and I get a tremendous amount of calls from young people who need community service hours. Mm-hmm. And what a lot of them have been doing, we've talked to them about different ways they can help, and many of them are organizing food drives in their community. I've had probably at least half a dozen students to get their community service hours. They've started a food drive in their community, in their school, at their church, and we've benefited greatly from that. And the one group that I really do need to call out on this call, just so everyone knows, is the Lakeland Federation of Teachers. They have been incredible in supporting their students' families. They were here every single week, starting in April, through to the end of the school year, and after the school year ended, gave us an extremely generous check to carry us through the summer and the beginning of the fall, and they are now back again donating. So they've been really amazing. Thank you.
That's Where can people send checks to?
For the Community Food Pantry at St. Mary's, you can make out a check to the Community Food Pantry and send it to 1836 East Main Street in Mohegan. Catherine?
And for First Pres, you make out the check to First Presbyterian Church of Yorktown and put on the comment line food pantry, and it'll go into the correct bank account. And that's 2880 Crampon Road.
Ladies, does it help to send money to Feeding Westchester in your name? Because I understand the buyback power is kind of a big thing through there.
So Councilman, that's also very helpful. Ironically, because Feeding Westchester has not been charging the pantries for food for most of 2020, which I will tell you saved our budgets. In this case, it's not so much a credit line there on our behalf, although that is helpful, but Feeding Westchester, I'll say it again, they did not charge for bulk food from April through December of 2020. And so I don't know how they're financing that deficit, but yes, I will absolutely say that supporting Feeding Westchester is also a great idea.
And we do have a member of Feeding Westchester who joined our task force's last meeting and provided just amazing insight and information for us to continue to build off of. And we're looking forward to them participating in a more formal way moving forward. So that they've been great. Councilman Lachterman, thank you for raising Feeding Westchester and putting that on everyone's radar. Both for Catherine and Cindy, if someone wanted to donate electronically, are you able to do that?
Yep.
Yes, they can. For the Community Food Pantry, they can go to the Community Food Pantry's website, and there's the ability on there. There's a link to donate electronically.
And what's the web address? Never mind. It's a pop quiz. It's okay. Don't worry.
Okay,
Sorry.
No problem.
So for First Pres, it's fpcyorktown.org. And yes, there are electronic donation methods.
Excellent.
And for Community Food Pantry, it's St. Mary's Food Pantry.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And again, thank you both for your leadership within our community and for what you're doing to combat hunger within our community. It is greatly appreciated. And I wanted to thank you both.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak, Supervisor.
Absolutely. And so we're going to move to the last portion of tonight's ceremony. And the last portion is the exact concluding words from Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech. This is going to be recited by the members of the Yorktown Interfaith Council. And again, you see them scattered around the screen. And so I believe we're going to start with Rabbi Robbie Weiner. Rabbi?
I say to you today, my friends, that in spite of the difficulties and frustrations of the moment, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed, that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at a table of brotherhood.
I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a desert state sweltering with the heat of injustice and oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice.
I have a dream that my 4 children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
I have a dream that one day the state of Alabama, whose governor's lips are presently dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, will be transformed into a situation where little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls and walk together as sisters and brothers.
I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together.
This is our hope. This is the faith with which I return to the South. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope.
Do we have Jamie?
Oh, something's wrong with your sound.
I'll
Okay.
Robbie, I'm going to let you read for me.
Okay, are you sure? You got it.
You're on mute.
Rabbi?
All right, I'll take it. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day.
This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with a new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring.
And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightened Alleghenies of Pennsylvania.
Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous peaks of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and every molehill of Mississippi. From every mountainside, let freedom ring.
When we let freedom ring, when we let freedom ring, when we let freedom ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we're free at last.
Wonderful job by all.
Wonderful. That was
Very nice.
wonderful.
Thank you all. Thank you to our partners of the Yorktown Interfaith Council here in Yorktown tonight. We recommit ourselves to achieving the dream of Dr. King by working together, by building bridges, by doing so with the tools of love, unity, and community.
Amen.
So, again, I thank you all for joining us. I thank you, Frank Williams, for your inspiring words tonight. I thank Catherine and Cindy for your inspiring work within our community every single day to help some of our most vulnerable neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
And to everyone else in the town of Yorktown, join us as we recommit ourselves to achieve Dr. King's dream, and we can do that together. Again, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you again, Rabbi Robbie Weiner, for being a leader in bringing this all together so we can provide this important service to the residents of our town. Thank you all so much.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
What a blessing.
God bless.
Thank you. God bless.
God bless.